Welcome to the next enlightening episode of Rooted Wisdom, exploring tribal agriculture. Today, we're delving into a pivotal framework that shapes food sovereignty and governance within Indigenous communities, the Model Tribal Food and Agriculture Code. Joining us for this insightful discussion are Erin Parker, the Executive Director of the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative, and Dr. Jan Hayman, Tribal Citizen of the Osage Nation and Osage Nation Secretary of Natural Resources. Together, we'll explore the significance, intricacies, and impact of this foundational code in preserving traditional farming methods, promoting sustainable agriculture, and fostering economic development within Native communities.
Erin, it's so great to have you back. So today we're talking about the Model Food and Ag Code. So can you tell me what prompted IFAI to create the Model Tribal Food and Ag Code?
Sure. I'm glad to be back and love to talk about the Model Tribal Food and Agriculture Code project. I want to give credit where credit was due. I think that was really the vision and brainchild of our founding director, Janie Sims-Hip. She is an incredible Indigenous agricultural attorney, citizen of the Chickasaw Nation, and she, not only founded IFAI but also the Office of Tribal Relations, the USDA, and had come here to IFAI from the Office of the Secretary at USDA, founded this place really with a passion and vision to support tribal governments in investing in agriculture through the kind of work that really attorneys do, development of model laws that support tribes as they are planning their food systems work. The work of governments, is creating entities within tribal governments like tribal departments of agriculture or tribal departments of natural resources or similar entities, however the tribal government structure looks, that houses all of those opportunities. It gives them not just a home, but also it can give them support within the tribal government structure. It gives tribal citizens, tribal producers a place to go, to show up and ask for resources and support from their tribal government. All of those things can be really important to tribes as they're investing in ag. So providing that strong legal foundation was really, really key to the vision of the Model Tribal Food and Agriculture Code.
Awesome. Can you talk about the process of developing the model code? Did IFAI and partners do one-on-one outreach with tribes that had a code, or what were the steps?
Yeah, it was a long process, right? This was a multi-year thing. This was not something that we did overnight, certainly. And we had numerous partners over the course of the several years that we were working on the code. We started out with a bunch, similar to what we did with the Native Farm Bill Coalition work a few years ago. We started out by doing in-person outreach across Indian country. We went to intertribal regional meetings, national meetings, like the Intertribal Ag Council's annual meeting. We sat down with tribal leaders, with tribal producers, and we just talked about what they saw as opportunities where tribal law could support them better. We knew that going into this project, we were never going to be able to create a code that was hyper specific because Indian country is so incredibly diverse in terms of not just the foods that are produced, but also the growing seasons, the goals that tribes have in food and agriculture. All of that looks so different across 574 plus tribes. So what we wanted to do was collect, feedback from folks up front to give us a good broad idea of where there might be gaps that we could help fill with model code language. So that was a lot of the work that we did in the very beginning. When it came to research work, we also looked at publicly available tribal laws. Not every tribe publishes its code, but many do provide them available publicly. There are really great resources out there for those things, like the National Indian Law Library that's maintained by the Native American Rights Fund is a great resource for tribes that do publish their codes online. Those are available often for viewing through the National Indian Law Library. So we wanted to be really respectful of tribes that were publishing their codes publicly, only looking at what was publicly available. We weren't looking at anything that was private or very closely held. And similarly, we also did like a 50-state survey too, because we know a lot of agricultural law is not federal. A lot of it is driven by local, state, tribal agricultural law. And so we wanted to know what the trends were nationally across states as well, because if you're enacting a law, like for example, on fencing, there's a split in the states on how you fence against animals getting out for livestock producers. And so we wanted to be able to let tribal policymakers and tribal attorneys know that that was part of the state of the law as well. So this wasn't just us writing model code, it was also a really massive research project into national trends in agricultural law so that we could provide that as a free educational resource for any tribe that was thinking about enacting similar policies.
Yeah. So like open range versus liability for your animals getting out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, what are some areas included in IFAI's model code?
So the code is really broad. It's over 1,000 pages long, and it spans 12 plus different chapters. We don't necessarily always share exact specifics of what's in it because, again, we know that there are some tribes that don't like to publish their code, and so we try to be a little bit careful and judicious in sharing exactly what's in there, so that that way this is still an open resource even for tribes that don't publish code as well. But I can speak really broadly about it. I can talk about like creation of tribal governance entities like tribal departments of agriculture. That's part of the code. There are some overall regulations for food safety that are in the code. The code touches on really anything from farm to fork. That's kind of how we envisioned the code working. I mean, really similar to like an agricultural title for the federal government, honestly.
So, e- every tribal nation operates differently.
Yeah.
And it really has its own nuances. So IFAI's work with tribes, how does it help them navigate that process? Because we know it's not a one size fits all approach.
Exactly. Yeah. So we wanted to provide a resource that was broad and easily tailored. And we also wanted to provide a resource that came sort of prepackaged with a lot of research. So there are citations to a lot of the like state laws or any kind of federal law impacts, because we know that that interplay for tribal nations between like federal laws of general applicability or not is something that we wanted to flag up for tribes that were thinking about enacting food and agricultural laws. So it's designed to not be one size fits all. It's also designed to be kind of a living resource. And it's designed to be a resource that is highly flexible. So a tribe can take that and take pieces of it and use those to customize and fit to their specific needs and goals for their food system. But it's certainly not something I would never expect a tribe to just wholesale adopt the whole thing, for example, because it really is designed to be sort of almost a buffet, I guess, since we're talking about food. And it's right before lunch when we're recording this, so I'm hungry. It's like a little bit of a legal buffet. You can kind of go along and you can see what you think might fit your situation, and put it on your plate and think about it. And one of the things, yeah,
Because if you put all that food on your plate, you
too much food. It's too much food on your plate. And it's also, as tribal governments are investing in this, like, we know these are offices and programs and initiatives that may take years to build. This is something that, a lot of tribal governments are doing very thoughtfully with their citizens as well. For example, if they're doing this as part of like an agricultural resource management plan process or an ARMP through the American Indian Agricultural Resource Management Act, that is like a 3-year process. It involves a ton of community engagement and feedback and dialogue between tribal government leaders and citizens. And so, some of those things may have code implications, but this is not something that happens overnight. So we wanted to build a resource that was not only tailorable, but also something where we could offer assistance free of charge to any tribe that wanted to enact code. And we've done that with multiple tribes over the years since this was passed. A lot of us are attorneys here at IFAI, but we also have tribal business specialists on our tribal enterprise team too, who do strategic planning and consulting. And we're not doing any like practicing law there, but we can work as an educational resource for tribal governments who are doing this work. So we can work with your tribal attorneys to help do legal research and support the tailoring of these resources.
Well, that leads right into my next question. Here at IFAI and in Indian country in general, we love to tell stories. And so,
Mhm.
do you have any examples of success stories of implementing our model tribal food and ag code?
Yeah, I would say I want to give Bay Mills Indian community a shout out because they were the very first tribe to use this resource. We worked with a Bay Mills team and the Public Health Law Center out of Minneapolis on a cottage food law. Really early on in the process, the Bay Mills Indian community has a farmers market that they run, and that they were looking to enact a cottage food law that incorporated some protections for their cottage food producers, so that they were able to continue to sell at that market. And they were also able to, I think, work with with the Michigan State folks after they passed that to develop like a memorandum of understanding between them and the state, so that everybody understood, who had the inspection authority, making sure that tribal sovereignty was respected, making sure that their cottage food producers were still able to access market opportunities through that law. So that's a really strong protection for tribal entrepreneurs in the food space. So I think that's the first one. And then we've had other tribes over the years that we've supported as well. Most recently, not really recently, it's been a really long process. We worked with Blackfeet for quite some time on their agricultural resource management plan, and that had some code consultation pieces as well. And the Osage Nation in their meat processing facility stand up as well, just off the top of my head. So there's been a lot of diverse and really interesting work going on out there.
That's awesome. So, what advice would you give to a tribal official or citizen or producer that's interested in trying to help their tribe establish a food and ag code?
I mean, first, I would say, we are a free resource, so you're welcome to call our team. Definitely give our tribal enterprise or our legal team a call, and we can help facilitate community meetings. We've done that for tribes before on these issues. So if you have kind of a grassroots movement that you're doing and you're not necessarily an elected official or working with tribal government as staff, that doesn't mean that you don't have opportunities. We've definitely facilitated community meetings before. So those are opportunities that people have if you're part of tribal government staff or a tribal elected official and you have a charge to create something or to pass a law. Please give us a call. We're happy to work with your tribal attorneys. And you can also sign up for a free account to view all of the code as well. We do keep it password protected, again, just so we're making sure that we're keeping that resource closely held for any tribe that doesn't publicly make their laws available. But we are happy to be a resource. So give us a call.
Yeah, and part of that free resource is us like coming out to the tribe so that we can
Exactly.
help see that at no cost to the tribe. Well, I really appreciate you being here for our Model Food and Ag Code
Yeah.
podcast today, and I can't wait to hear from people and see if they want us to come out and help them out.
Yeah, me too. We love supporting Indian country ag, and this is one of the longstanding staples of our work. So we're really excited about this one.
One of the tribal food and ag code's great successes is the Osage Nation. Our communications director, Maribel Zook, was able to catch up with the Osage Nation's Dr. Jan Hayman.
Well, to get into it, I just wanted to get started with allowing you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Osage Nation.
Sure. I'm the Secretary of Natural Resources on Chief's Cabinet. So I oversee the environmental and natural resources programs and then the food sovereignty programs. And the Osage Nation has, they kind of started getting into food sovereignty pretty early for us in about 2016 or so. And then, of course, that really flourished a lot more with the COVID pandemic. So due to the food systems breakdowns, that included the Harvest Land Farm and then our butcher house meat processing facility. And then we oversee the nation's bison herd and then a cattle herd that was purchased with CARES funds. So those both are really important for the nation so we can better control the pipeline going into butcher house meat. So that's been important to maintain that under the nation's oversight. So as we started really developing the food sovereignty programs, Carly Hotvet worked with us, and I think there was some earlier communications than even when I got involved, but on the need for developing a food code.
I think what you all were able to do whenever the pandemic did hit, and pivot and really find innovative solutions there on the reservation is very inspiring. I can remember being in the pandemic and being over at our grocery store, stocking shelves. They tried to get me back in the meat department because I was a meat judger. And I went back there and I was like, I do not belong here. I cannot do this. So tribes really stepped up to the plate during that time. I mean, we saw through our research too with NAF and FRAC that tribal citizens were going to their tribes first for solutions and resources. And tribes were, again, the ones that stepped up. And a lot also served outside of the community as well with vaccine drives and things of that nature. So very cool to see everything that you all have done. But why was it important for the Osage Nation to create its own food and ag code? You kind of alluded to it, but I thought we could dive into it just a little bit deeper.
It's important for a few reasons, but we really felt like our food sovereignty programs, like our meat facility is an inspected facility, and we're working towards getting all that in place at the farm. So we want to make sure that we have everything in place so that we are internally with the Osage Nation, that we have everything set up that we're able to provide the highest quality product to our people, so that we have, internally recognized that it's important, and recognize that we have taken the steps internally to set those foundations so that it's a stable supply, and it's we don't get into anything that could compromise how hard we've worked to get the programs to be what they are. So mainly just to really get that foundation in there through our legislative branch, and then we can build on that with the internal policies and things like that. But just that foundation is there, that we are always keeping in mind the end product to the Osage people. We want that to be safe and the highest quality it can be.
So we've been talking a lot on kind of the food side. What about conservation? How has the Food and Ag Code helped support conservation efforts at the Osage Nation?
So we still have a lot of work to go with getting more of the food code implemented, but it has made us think about, in my opinion, the products from our food sovereignty programs, but also in my opinion, food sovereignty from a land management perspective, from that goes into wildlife and the apiary with the bees, and how all that comes together. So we have I feel like taken like a much broader look at what that means for the nation, and again, not just these facilities that we've built, but the greater Osage Nation land base, and how we are thinking about that moving forward. So yes, we have been able to luckily take the model food code and tweak it, to be what it needs to be for us, so that we are taking things into consideration like that for landowners and for the nation managing our own land.
As a tribal citizen yourself, what does it mean to you to be able to serve your nation in your role in this work and be part of this honestly really exciting time in Indian country?
That's a great question, because I feel like it really is an exciting time to be here and to be able to see how far we've come in just a short amount of time. It's really exciting. But I think as an Osage citizen also, I have feel like maybe a little more of a burden to make sure that things are done to the best that I can facilitate it. So I, in being a cabinet secretary right now, am really able to kind of step back and make sure I'm getting all the processes in alignment, that I have the right people on my staff now that can do the work, but I want to make sure we continue to move forward in a positive way and think about, all the processes along the way. How can we make it better and more streamlined and create more processes to meet the needs of the people and the nation? And so it's very exciting, but it's, I guess I put more weight on myself, because who's going to take care of us than our own people? So, I want to, for my time here with the nation, make it the most valuable I can make it.
It's very evident in everything that y'all are doing, and I completely understand working for my tribe before I worked here at IFAI for so long, and still, I care about my tribe and what we're doing and want to be able to serve in some capacity. So I totally understand where you kind of take on some of those burdens and you take it very seriously, and you get up every day with a mission, but it's also very rewarding at the same time. It's hard work, but rewarding work as well. What would you tell to a tribe that might be interested in looking at implementing tribal food and ag code or trying to stand up some food sovereignty efforts? How can food and ag code help get those goals accomplished?
I think having the being able to see the model food code, it helps a lot, because if you were that that's something that you need to look into and to work towards implementing, but if you're not sure where to start, it can be overwhelming. So having that foundation available is really important, and it helps, I feel like, to identify spaces that you may not have even thought of. And there's parts of the model food code that we're not ready for right now, but there's we just reserve those sections for in the future, knowing that when we are ready, we can do that. But it really helps, I think, to kind of frame what the end goal might look like. And it definitely gives, at least for us at the Osage Nation, the ability to make it ours, to tweak it to fit what we're doing here. But was very helpful. And again, if you're just getting into it and not knowing where to turn, it can be a lot, but having that spelled out it made a huge difference.
As we wrap up this enlightening episode of Rooted Wisdom, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Erin Parker and Dr. Hayman for sharing their invaluable insights into the Model Tribal Food and Agriculture Code. Request access to the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative's Model Tribal Food and Ag Code at www.tribalfoodcode.com. Stay tuned for future episodes this season as we highlight the vibrant and inspirational stories of Indian country food and agriculture.